Really go for some coffee. You want some coffee? Let's get some coffee. So, didn't think I'd be doing this one. Detective Pikachu. Yeah, I hadn't planned to see this. I didn't like. It's not like a Sonic the Hedgehog. Words. It's not like a Sonic the Hedgehog thing where I saw the trailer. It was like, oh my god. It's just a case of Pokemon's not part of my fandom. Like I played, I don't know, maybe 5 hours worth of Pokemon Yellow, like way back in the late 90s. I never watched the cartoon. I never really got into anything. It was like, I know what it is. I know through osmosis some of the better known Pokemon. Of course I know who Pikachu is. But like for the most part, it's just never been a fandom that I've gotten into. So I had no particular, I had no dog in this race. Now, the funny thing was, I asked, because it was playing at the theater, I just asked, well, kind of offhandedly, if my daughter had any interest in seeing it. I didn't think she would because she's not really into Pokemon either. But she did want to see it because she thinks Pikachu's cute. And there are a few things that will drive my daughter's decision-making than cute animals. So I've now seen Detective Pikachu. And you consider this an outsider's perspective. Again, I'm not coming in completely cold. I'm too immersed in geek culture to not at least have a base level knowledge on Pokemon. But like, I'm not steeped in it. So that's the opinion I'm coming at this with. Considering that I am neither the target demographic in terms of age nor in terms of interest, because I never got into this fandom, wasn't bad. I don't want to oversell it by any means. By default, it's probably the best video game adaptation to film so far. Not video game adaptation, period. That goes to Castlevania right now. But as far as film, definitely theatrically released film, yeah, easily the best one. So it is interestingly paced. It's actually got a bit of a mystery. It's got twists. It's got turns. The dynamic between the lead characters is pretty good. Pikachu gets all the press because it's Ryan Reynolds basically doing family-friendly Deadpool. I mean, that's pretty much how he's performing it. But actually, the actual lead, Justice Smith, who I've only seen in a couple of things. I watched like 2 episodes of The Get Down, and it just didn't grab me. I didn't stick to it after that, and I did not like him at all in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But he was actually really good in this. Because it's not easy to be the straight man, especially in a world this nuts. So he did a pretty good job and actually got a lot of emotional truth out of the things he was asked to do, because despite being the straight man, he's carrying most of the emotional weight of this story, because it opens with him, finding out that his father's dead. And he plays that pretty straight. It's not played lightly. The emotional weight is given real. And, I didn't tear up at any moments, but I did feel like the vaguest hint of a lump at a few points. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting to feel. Again, I don't want to overemphasize. It wasn't like, oh, right in the heart. No, just a little twinge, but more than I was expecting from a movie like this, certainly. He's also got a really good dynamic with Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu, and he does a really good job selling the performance with this thing that was not actually there. Some actors do not know how to convincingly interact with something that was obviously going to be added in later in post. He does a really good job at it. And overall, I'm actually just flat out really impressed with him as an actor. He has to do a lot in this, and he has to make it look pretty effortless. So he's really good. Ryan Reynolds is really good. There's a few other supporting characters who are fine. Bill Nighy's fine. Well, I mean, Bill Nighy can't be bad, but he's fine. Ken Watanabe's fine. Most of the other supporting characters are a bit hammy. So, for instance, there's the female lead who is a reporter. She has a Psyduck. So, I remember thinking when she was on screen that her performance brought to mind, Disney made for TV. Now, don't get me wrong, she would have been the highlight in a Disney made for TV movie. But to see that kind of performance put in a theatrically released film is a little bit like, and a fair amount of the supporting characters kind of fall under that kind of heading. They're just a little bit, cartoonish is too strong a word. They're not quite there, but especially considering what a naturalistic performance Justice Smith is bringing, the fact that these other characters just aren't, it could have made it feel like he was out of place. Instead, it makes it feel like they're all out of place because he does it so well. It's actually kind of fascinating now that I stop and think about it. As far as the mystery aspect to it, because it's sort of a baby's first noir kind of a plot. And if you're familiar with these kinds of stories at all, if you're familiar with the tropes at all, you are going to figure out, if not exactly how everything goes down, you are going to figure out who the villain is of this pretty dang quick. But I'm not necessarily going to knock the film on it. That becomes one of those things where, like, it doesn't work for me, but I'm also not the target demographic age-wise, because, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff like this in terms of the general tone and feel and vibe of the thing. So, of course, I'm going to suss this out immediately. Now, the primary target demographic of younger kids, they haven't seen as much, so they are less likely to make those leaps and make the guesses. So, I mean, I try and balance it really carefully. As a rule of thumb, I don't like to give a pass on the basis of, well, it's for kids, it doesn't have to be smart. Well, like, no, it should be. But I do try and make allowances for basically everybody has their first cliche at some point. So when a piece of media is aimed at an age group that it's not unreasonable to assume they haven't encountered this cliche before, I try not to harp on it too much. I'll still point out that it's a cliche, but I'm not going to ding the film as much as I would if it was in something being presented and intended for adults, which, I mean, I don't want to say this isn't for adults. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, leave the kids here, go see something else. Like, it's not like that. And I think adults who like Pokemon are gonna find plenty to like here. The visualization of the Pokemon themselves is actually really well done, because basically they're all true to the original design. It's just they've been realistically textured. But Pikachu looks like Pikachu. He's just got, you know, fine fur. A Bulbasaur looks like a Bulbasaur. It's just got, you know, that sort of slightly slimy texture going on the skin and stuff like that. It's not photoreal, but then again, it really shouldn't be, because to try and do it more photorealistic would have been to make the mistake that Sonic the Hedgehog made and, like, go and scrap a classic design that works for a reason. So, you know, they didn't do that. And it's just nice. It's a nice, pleasant thing. I think if you yourself have Pokemon nostalgia, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of this. Just don't expect to be surprised by the plot. If you have young kids, if they like Pokemon, they'll probably enjoy this quite a bit. If you have a kid, like my kid, who just likes really cute animals or animal-like creatures, yeah, she actually enjoyed this quite a bit. Again, mainly on the basis of cuteness. She loved Pikachu. She liked the other ones pretty well, but that was her jam. She was all over Pikachu. She thought he was the cutest thing ever. And yeah, that's about it. Like, I didn't know if this was going to hurt or not. I didn't know if this was just going to be a string of inside jokes and references that I wasn't going to get, but it worked pretty well. And I actually gotta give some props to the fact that they didn't go with what would have been the obvious, just standard Pokemon plot, you know, of the trainer who has to go through the gyms and defeat the team whatever this week thing. Like, they scrapped that. And I know Detective Pikachu, like, is a pre-existing game. I don't know if this actually imports the story directly. I never played Detective Pikachu, but I think this was a much better call than doing what would have been the obvious thing, which is basically the kind of story that the cartoon did forever. So I think this works much better in a film setting. It was a really strong way to introduce Pokemon in a live action setting and just to have the creatures just be there. I mean, and every now and then they get identified. What they can do gets singled out, but it's not this big, long, protracted, now we must explain this and this. Like, no, they're just around. This is just the world. They're just here. Like you see a flock of birds and it's Pidgeot? I don't know. Letting my ignorance show now. I'll wrap it up there. Detective Pikachu, you've seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all sorts of stuff down there. There's merch, and there's links to other stuff that I do, and there's the Patreon, which if you go check that out, there are rewards involved. Gets you access to the Discord. You can get to vote on topics. You can get your name on the credits, and so much more depending on what you go for. Check it out, or also don't. You don't have to, because at the end of the day, folks, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, Pikachu!